Hello everyone, welcome to another day of our tutorial, and today we are going to design this Good Friday flyer, and I'm going to teach you how to design this from scratch. When you open your bridge in Adobe Photoshop, you would go ahead and then click on new file. After clicking on new file, you're going to use my settings, use my presets. Go ahead and use my preset settings, and so I'm going to title this Good Friday, and then my dimensions are 4:5, that is in inches, and then it's in portrait 300 pixels per inch. My color mode is RGB, and then you're using the settings as before in our previous video. So go ahead and create our new file. After creating a new file, the first thing is that I'm going to create a solid color. So come to your adjustments layer, click on solid color, and then enter. Automatically here is selected, so I'm going to type FFF on my keyboard, and automatically to fill in the text area. Okay, and I click OK. After I've chosen my solid color, the next thing I'll do is that I'll bring in my first resource. So my first resource is going to be the image of this cross. Now I bring this in, and then I resize it down, and then I bring it to the corner over here. Great. After I brought it in, I'm going to press enter on my keyboard. After pressing enter on my keyboard, I'm going to create a layer mask on this one by clicking on this mask on my adjustments layer. So after enabling my layer mask, I'm going to enable my brush by pressing B on my keyboard. My brush is looking like this. It's because my caps lock has been turned on, so I press on my caps lock again, and then my brush looks like this. So my flow set to 100, my opacity set to 100. I'm going to right click to show you my brush settings. My hardness has been set to 0. I'm going to go ahead and then I'll brush the edges off. I'll just brush these edges off slightly, making sure that it is not too much. Now I'm going to continue brushing this side. Great. Nice. Okay, now I press my V key to release my brush. After releasing my brush, the next thing I'll do is that I'm going to come into my adjustments layer and then go to hue and saturation. So in my hue and saturation, I'm going to colorize it. When I colorize it, I'm just going to bump up my saturation up to about 61 would do. I think it's red enough. Yes, I think it's okay like this. After it's okay like this, I'm going to reduce my opacity down to about 33%, and then I'm going to make sure that I clipped this one. Okay, I come into my properties, click on this one. Okay, it creates a clipping mask, and it is clipped only the image. Now on my image, what I'll do is that I'll change the blend mode. So I'll come here and I'll change my blend mode to luminosity. Okay, so after I reduce my blend mode to luminosity, I'm going to reduce my opacity again to about 40%. Now after I've done that, the next thing I'll do is that I'm going to group all these layers. So I press on shift, I press on the last layer, I press Ctrl J on my keyboard, and then I type here begin. So this is going to be my background. After I've created my background layer, I'm going to type in my text. Okay, so I'm going to type in my text over here. Before I type anything, let's go into our file. This file, the link to this file is in the description. Okay, it's part of the files that you're going to use for our project. That's the Good Friday file. And so the font I'm going to use over here is the Akira Expanded. So straight away I'm going to copy this, and then over here you see that it's already been there, so I'll paste it over here, Akira Expanded. Okay, good. And now the font size I actually want is about 58. Great. And then the color I'll use over here, I'm going to choose the color later on, but then I just want to type to see what comes up. Okay, so let me type good. I think this is great. So I press Ctrl 0 on my keyboard so that it comes full. Now after it has come full like this, I'll press B on my keyboard to release the type to, and then I position my text very well. So I want it to be somewhere here. Great. Then now the next thing I'll do is I'll duplicate this layer. So I'll press on my Alt key, and then I'll drag this thing down. to duplicate it right away. So with this one on the thumbnail, I'm just going to double click on the thumbnail. I press Ctrl A on my keyboard, and then I'll just type in Friday. So Good Friday. So my Friday text, I'll use my move tool to position my Friday very well. I'll make sure that this F is right under the O. Okay, great. Let me use my arrow keys on my keyboard to position it very well. I think I love this. I love this. This is good. Now after I've done that, the next thing is I'm going to duplicate this good layer. But before I duplicate it, let me change the color. Okay, the color for this text is part of over here, but then let me just tell you how I do the colors. So you click on this one, and then you make sure that you drag this color selector right to the bottom, and then you're going to drag and pick the color that is in the top corner. Okay? And you click on OK. Now I'm going to hide this, and then I'm going to press on Ctrl J on my keyboard to duplicate the good layer, and then I bring it underneath the text layer. Good. I'm going to work with this later on, but for the meantime, let me convert this to a smart object. So I right click, and then I convert to a smart object, and then under this one, I'm going to bring in my pen tool. I bring in my pen tool. My pen tool is looking somewhere. I just press on the caps lock key on my keyboard, and then with this, let me zoom in a bit. I'm just going to draw something over here, a shape. Make sure that your pen has been set to shape. Your fill is black. Okay, your stroke has been set to none, and then your stroke width is just 2 pixels. Okay, then I'm just going to draw this, and then I'll bring this down a bit, and then at this point I'll just hold my shift key so that I get a straight line out of here, and then I come here, and then I come here. So I've drawn a nice shape. Okay, good. I press on my V key to release the shape, and then with my Friday text, I'm going to change the color. We're just going to type FFF like we did before on my keyboard, and then the color has been set to white. Now I'm going to work on this good text. Okay, so I'm just going to double click on its thumbnail, and then after I click on the thumbnail, I'll come into the property section of this good. What I'm trying to do is I want to create a shadow. Okay, I want to create a shadow of this text, and for the shadow I want to create, that's what I'm going through these processes. I come into the properties, into the solid color, I press 000, and then I get the black color. After I do that, I right click on the good, and then I rasterize the type. And then when I'm done rasterizing the type, I come into edits, and then I come to define brush presets. Okay, define brush presets, and when you do that, this thing is going to automatically select, and then it becomes a brush preset. Okay, so I'm not going to change anything over here. I just press OK. When I press OK, you see that now my brush has been set to this text. So I come into my working area, I press Ctrl 0. So now over here, what I will do is that on top of this shape layer, I'm going to create a new blank layer, and then with this one, I'll set my color. Make sure that the color over here has been set to black 000. Okay, and then I'm just going to click. I'm going to make sure that it's right underneath this text, right underneath it, and then I'll just click once. After I click once, I'm going to zoom out a bit, and then I'll make sure that I'm going to paste it somewhere here. The D is right under the Y. Okay, and then I press and hold my shift key. Before I click, you press and hold your shift key, then you just click. Great. So after you click, you see that now it comes out nicely like this. So you can press on your V key to reset everything, and I press on Ctrl 0 to go back to my full screen. And the next thing I'll do is that I'm going to group all these layers. Okay, I press on my shift key, and then I press on this one, and I press Ctrl G on my keyboard, and then I name this header. Great. After I'm done working with my header, I'm going to go ahead and work on my crown. So I'm going to bring in the crown. So this is the crown. Now I position my crown very well. Great. After I position my crown, I'm going to enable a layer mask over this crown, and then I press on my B that to enable my brush. I make sure that I right click, and then I change the brush to the soft round brush. Okay, there are different kinds of brushes. When we defined our own brush presets, but then I want to use this general brushes, the soft one brush for this time around. Okay, so when that has been enabled, now I can wipe up these things. At this point, you can increase your hardness. So out on your keyboard and then drag your mouse pointer down. Okay, that's what I actually did. Now let me reduce the hardness again to 0. Good. Then I clean this thing. Then I wipe this part off. I reduce my brush. I wipe this part off. Great. So I press on my V key to go back to the move tool, and then on this crown I want to do some edits. Okay, so I'll go to filter. I go to camera raw filter. When I go to my camera raw filter, inside of my camera raw filter, what I'm going to do first is that I'm going to reduce the shadows. Okay, so that it looks black a bit, and I'll increase the contrast, and then I'll reduce my highlights a bit. Okay, then I go into my texture. I'll increase my texture slightly, but not too much, and then let me dehaze it also. Then let me go into my details and then sharpen it, and I click OK. Great. It's looking great now. So what I'll do now at this point is that I'm going to duplicate this layer. I press Ctrl J. I want to create a shadow of this. Okay, when I press Ctrl J, at this point I can press Ctrl T on my keyboard. When I'm going to press Ctrl T on my keyboard again to transform this. I hold on my Shift key, then I drag down. It's not really giving me what I want. What's wrong? Okay, before I do anything, let me convert this to a smart object. Okay, so let me right click and convert to a smart object. When I convert to a smart object on this layer, I'm going to press Control my keyboard, and then I'll click on the thumbnail so that it selects only the crown and then leave some excess part out of it, and then I create a layer mask. Good. After I created the layer mask, now I can press Ctrl T on my keyboard, and I press on my Shift key, and then I can drag this thing down nicely. Then I make sure I position it right under it. Good. Now I'm going to warp this one. Okay, before I warp it, warping doesn't work when there's a layer mask, so I'm going to convert this to a smart object again before I come and press Ctrl T, and then I right click and choose warp. Good. After I warp it, I'm going to press Ctrl 0 so that I see it clearly, and then I'm going to warp this thing upwards. Okay, so I'm warping this thing upwards so that it curves just as the crown has curved. With this thing, the more you try, the more you become better at it, actually. Good. Now after I've done that, I'm going to create a layer mask over this one, and then I'll turn on my gradients. So with my gradients, I'm going to drag to this side, okay, so that it fades. So I want it to look like there's a light coming from this direction. My gradient is too light. Alright, so what I'll do is that I'll reduce the opacity of this one. I'm going to reduce it to about I think 33% will do, and then I press on my V key again to release that one. Great. So I think at this point I'm almost done working on my crown. I want it to feel like there are some droplets that are falling from the crown, so I have some blood droplets here. Great. So this droplet, let me extend it, and then let me use my Shift key and then drag this thing down so that it looks like some blood droplets are coming from the crown. Great. Now let me group everything over here by pressing Ctrl G, and then I'll call this crown. Good. Now I crown. Let me send this crown up a bit. Let me bring it down again. Good. Now I like it like this. Now if you feel like the image of the cross in the background, you don't like the blend mode of luminosity, you can actually bring it back to normal. Okay, yes, you can bring it back to normal. Then you can also retain it at luminosity, depending on what you prefer. So at this point, I'm just going to bring in my scriptures. So I come over here. So there's a scripture, and I put it right here, and I'm going to drag it at its position. Okay, so I've already done this thing already. So let's go into it. How I actually did this text, this scripture. So double click on the thumbnail to see what I did. So when you come into it, you see that for this one, the font that I use is here. It's Poppins. Okay, so Poppins is the font that I use. But for the main text, I used medium, Poppins medium. But for the scripture or the Bible verse, I used bold italic. Good. So you can just do that for yourself. But then I've already prepared it. Great. Now let me do some final touches. For my final touches, I'm going to come into my adjustment layer, go to curves, and then for my curves, I'm going to switch to the reds. Okay, so let me adjust the reds upwards over here slightly, make sure it's not so much. And then let me go into my blue section and then adjust my blues also up slightly. Great. If you feel like your curve adjustments are too much, you can always reduce the opacity so that the effect isn't so much. So let me shift the crown up again. I feel like the crown has been brought to great. I like it like this. So let me press Ctrl 0, and then I think that will do for this one. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is how we designed our Good Friday poster. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you in the next video. Bye bye.